This is America's Voice Live for a Monday, and as you know, tomorrow the circus comes to town, if you will, as the impeachment trial for former President Donald Trump will get underway in the United States Senate. The problem being is it's never happened before, and many believe that it's just unconstitutional all the way around because it says to impeach a president and remove. How do you impeach and remove if they're not there to remove? Makes not a lot of sense. Rick Green is a constitutional attorney. He is in Las Vegas today teaching people about the Constitution and the Second Amendment and other important topics. Rick, good to have you here.
John.
Give me the foundational explanation that you have. Constitutional or not? I think not. If it were, Chief Justice John Roberts would be there. Clearly he's not, because he threw a pretty obvious bit of shade saying, I'm not going to be there, as the Constitution prescribes if it was an actual impeachment. Your thoughts?
Well, your instincts are 100% accurate. The Constitution is unambiguous on this. You've got to have the president, the vice president, or a civil officer to have an impeachment here. And there's no question. That's what Article 2, Section 4 says. But thereafter, this coveted phrase in Article 1, Section 3 that allows you to disqualify someone from future public office. The problem is that disqualification's after a comma. It's and disqualification. And before you get to that, you got to get to removal from office. How do you remove somebody from office that's no longer in office? This was answered in 1799. It's not a new question. And for those that say that this is, debatable and you could go either way, we ought to look at the original intent and the precedent set by the folks that actually gave us the Constitution. And the history's there for this. You cannot impeach someone that is no longer in office.
Rick, tell me what happened in 1799. That's new information to me. So please share with the viewers here what you are talking about when you point to that year and those cases.
Well, think about how close that is to the Constitution itself, which was framed in 1787 and then in place in 1789, just a decade later, with some signers of the Constitution and still some signers of the Declaration in Congress. There was an impeachment of a former U.S. Senator named William Blount, actually also a former signer of had been a signer of the Constitution. And his defense attorney was Jared Ingersoll, also a signer of the Constitution. So when this thing got to the Senate, his argument was, look, this guy's no longer an officer. He's no longer in the Senate. He's no longer a part of this. You cannot impeach someone that doesn't fit that definition in Article 2, Section 4. And the Senate agreed and voted not to go forward, not to convict him. I think you have to look to those folks because they're the ones that gave us the Constitution. What these guys are doing right now, they're really distorting the Constitution. They're trying to use this 1876 case of a former Secretary of War being impeached. He was acquitted as well, but they did move forward. But just because Congress got it wrong in 1876 doesn't mean we should get it wrong now. I do think the attorneys for Donald Trump have made a good case in their brief. They've raised all of these issues. They've talked about these exact same things and how unconstitutional this process is, and just the fact that even if he was still president, he did absolutely nothing that would be impeachable. They're literally impeaching the First Amendment. They're saying freedom of speech and saying the very same things that they've all said. Every politician in America has said, let's go fight for what we believe in.
Rick, don't you find it remarkable? All these windbags in Congress talking about the Constitution over and over again and pointing to the Constitution, and they've never read the document. I mean, it's pretty obvious they've never read the document with things that they say, and that goes to Republicans and Democrats alike, people that took an oath to uphold a document that they have no idea what's actually in it. Isn't that frightening?
It is. And though I would say we, the people, are responsible for that, we've got to study the document as well. We need to have a restoration of civic literacy in America. I think most of the problems we're facing right now are the result of civic ignorance. Look, we've all been ignorant at some point, right? I'm still ignorant about a lot of things. But when I figured out that I was ignorant about my rights and didn't know the Constitution, I said ignorance is curable. I'm going to go study these things. And any citizen can do that. We certainly need more of it in Washington, D.C. It's been appalling the last few months to listen to these U.S. senators actually show complete ignorance about how the 12th Amendment works, about what happens if nobody gets a majority in the Electoral College. They didn't even know that it goes to the House and they vote by state. I mean, these are some of the basic things that make our Constitution work well. And now you've got this kangaroo court. I mean, what they're doing right now, literally making up the rules as they go, as you said at the top of the segment, no Chief Justice here, which is required if you're impeaching the president. This is more befitting of a banana republic than a constitutional republic. Constitutional republic puts the rules in writing for a reason so that you can keep from having these freak shows, these show trials that are completely without basis in our written document.
Well, clearly it's an extension of the temper tantrum that began sometime in mid-2015 when Donald Trump announced that his intention was to run for the presidency. And then, of course, on November the 8th, when he won the presidency in 2016, the temper tantrum has never abated or even slowed down. That's why they're pursuing this, and it's I think it's a bad look for them. But I do want to share with the viewers exactly how it reads. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than to removal from office and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit. First this and this. But if you can't remove somebody, it's not legitimate. That's number one. And number two, without Chief Justice John Roberts there, I have to look at Patrick Leahy, the senior senator from the state of Vermont, a hyper-partisan who's acting as judge and juror. He's overseeing the trial, but he also gets to vote. I mean, nobody sees that as common sense or fair on any. I don't care what your metric is. To have somebody that sits in judgment of the events and then gets to vote, come on.
You're exactly right. I mean, that's, the kangaroo court gets more kangaroo-ish. And people kind of feel this in their gut right now. They're watching this happen and they're going, wait a minute, what happened to separation of powers? I mean, is the judiciary supposed to handle a citizen being charged with something? And that's what Donald Trump is now. He's a citizen. Impeachment is a really, really rare act. I mean, we've done it less than a couple dozen times, and only 3 times have we taken that second step you just mentioned, the and disqualification. So this is when you have an incredibly bad situation and you need to get somebody out of office. It's not about going after somebody criminally. They can do that if the local DA thinks that Donald Trump incited a riot. Then he can be indicted by the local
charges.
DA. Yeah, that's exactly right.
File charges, get after it. And the other part of this is they have no chance of getting a conviction, even a non-constitutional one, because 45 Republican senators have said it's not constitutional. And if it's not constitutional, no matter what Liz Cheney or everybody else demands, they're not going to go through against what they believe to be the clear written text of the founding document. I'll give you the last word.
I think you're right. I mean, thank God for Rand Paul standing up and forcing that vote last week to let us know that there are, in fact, 45 senators that will still uphold the Constitution. Shame on Liz Cheney and the 10 Republicans that joined Democrats in ignoring the Constitution, and the 5 Republicans in the Senate that apparently are going to do the same. But they can't get to 67. I hope that they don't decide once again to ignore the Constitution and that 2/3 requirement and just skip over removal from office and go to disqualification and say we can do that with 51 votes. But, these folks are ignoring the Constitution. They're picking and choosing, so there's no telling what's going to happen this week.
Rick Green, really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Constitutional attorney Rick Green here. Again, this all kicks off tomorrow. The festivities kick off tomorrow, Tudor, with all the pomp and circumstance, that's for sure.
In the meantime, some people are questioning the timing of Beautiful Things. That's Hunter Biden's memoir that's set to release on